G'day guys, this is Broadcasting Because, back with the second episode in this series of AFL Live, taking the Fremantle Dockers hopefully towards the premiership, and we are coming off the back of a very disappointing loss at Etihad Stadium to the Essendon Bombers. And we'll see here, just taking a look at some of the results from round 2. I just simulated the AI games. Saw Essendon, our opponents from last week, belting the Gold Coast. And now we turn our attention to North Melbourne. It's our first home game of the year against the Kangaroos. Big expectations. They're a team that won last week against West Coast, absolutely putting them in their place. Take a look at the team lineups now for this round 2 clash. I have made 3 changes from the team that played Essendon. I have Zach Dawson, the new signing for this season, coming in place of Nick Lower, who just didn't really impose himself too much on the game. I will look to use him a lot more as the season goes on though. Alex Silvani to replace Michael Johnson, whose matchup Hurley just ran all over him last week. And then Jack Anthony moving up from the substitute position to take Mellington's spot, and Mellington unfortunately drops out of the side for Tenai Muzungu, who will be the substitute for today. Mellington just really didn't get involved at the game at all last time. So after the Kangaroos got an early behind, Aaron Sandlands is just left on his own to take an open mark in the centre of the ground. Handballs to Main, who finds the captain Matthew Pavlich and slams home his first of the game. The first quarter was very much a battle of the midfields, with the forwards of either end seeing very little of the ball. North Melbourne finally got their first goal on the board in the 9th minute of the first quarter, thanks to Hamish McIntosh, in a very low-scoring first quarter. That was an important goal for them. Chris Main then, for Fremantle, gathered a scrappy handball and found the chest of Jack Anthony very easily, who made no mistake from just a few metres out. Fremantle certainly had control of the ball for the majority of the first quarter, but then Adam McPhee makes an absolute blinder and gets run down by Brent Harvey in his back 50, and don't give Brett Harvey a chance like that. It'll make you pay pretty much every time. And then the man steps up, Aaron Sandlands, coming off the back of a pretty poor game, dinks it over the top to Chris Main, who slots his first of the afternoon. And then Sandlands gets his second assist in just a matter of minutes when Nat Fyfe slams home a goal from a difficult angle on his left foot. A simple goal there for the Pav, and unfortunately Fremantle weren't quite as far in front as we could have been at the quarter time break. We didn't take the best of our chances, but nevertheless, after a pretty dominant first quarter, Fremantle led by 16 points at the first change of ends. Well, in complete contrast to the first quarter, the second quarter, I've got to say, it was terrible. It was a very, very low scoring quarter right the way through. And despite having quite a few chances, Fremantle, we just couldn't put any of them away. You can see a few of our highlights here. It was difficult to find highlights. There were a lot of tackles in the back 50s and the defensive 50s, particularly for North Melbourne. Fremantle held quite a lot of the ball up forward, but we weren't the only ones that were struggling. North Melbourne had a lot of difficulties up forward as well. Aaron Edwards taking a very nice mark over Luke McFarlane, but failed to find the big sticks as he tucked it through for a behind. And throughout the entire first half of the second quarter, only 1 point had been scored. Again, we have a look at some more scrapping in the forward 50 for the Fremantle Dockers, just unable to find a decent shot on goal. North Melbourne had switched to a very much a man-on-man tactic, trying to shut us down, and they did that very effectively. And all their efforts paid off North Melbourne from shutting us down. Greg Broughton gets caught out at the back by Warren, and he will jog back to slot through the first goal of the second quarter to North Melbourne. They've scored 8 points to 0. Fremantle have not scored so far this quarter. That is until Jack Anthony arrives, capitalising on a clinically placed handball under pressure from the captain, and he puts that away for his second of the match. Fremantle headed into half-time with a 20-point lead thanks to a goal from Stephen Hill, who had a quiet game right on the final siren. Chris Main leading our disposal count at the half-time break as we move on to the third quarter, which unfortunately started exactly the same way as the second did. Now, I love this piece of play from Ballantyne, just drops the shoulder and goes and finds Matthew Pavlich on a lovely lead. But once again, Fremantle with some shooting difficulties, unable to find the big sticks. We had a lot of chances that we really should have put away. We kept North Melbourne in the game right through the third quarter. They just kept on hanging around North Melbourne. We couldn't finish them off in the third quarter despite our dominant presence, particularly up forward with a majority of possession in our forward 50. Jack Anthony was probably the standout player for Fremantle of the third quarter. He picked off Scotty McMahon's clearance out from the back here, and with a decent effort on goal as well, but again just not able to find that breakthrough goal. But he certainly made up for his couple of misses in this quarter with an absolute blinder of a goal, soccering it off the ground from an almost impossible angle, and that gave him his third of the game, made up for his two misses of the quarter. Look at the angle, that deserves a replay. From one of the most acute angles, he did very, very well there. Despite not being able to deliver the knockout blow to North Melbourne on the scoreboard, I was very happy with the way that we defended, keeping them to just the one goal for the quarter and going into the three-quarter time break with a 26-point lead. Very happy with the way that Jack Anthony and Chris Mayne are playing for me up forward as well. They've had a bulk of possessions and they have kicked a number of goals as well. Now the first blow of the final quarter went to North Melbourne through Aaron Edwards as he kicked home his second. And then, just to make me a bit more nervous, Greg Broughton gets caught out of position by Warren for the second time today, and Warren makes no mistake from right on the 50 mark to bring North Melbourne within 11 points. But we don't go down easily. We were absolutely determined not to allow a repeat of what happened against Essendon last week. Nat the Knife Fife with a penetrating run, who gives it off to Paul Duffield and brings the margin back to 17 points with just 12 and a half minutes to play. Now, after a pretty poor match last week against Essendon, I was looking for a lift from Aaron Sandilands, and he did exactly that today. He kicked his first goal of the afternoon in the fourth quarter, capping off what I would consider as a very satisfactory match for him. And Greg Broughton, who had unfortunately had an absolute shocker, finds Tendai Mzungu over the top, lobs it towards Jack Anthony, who takes it on, and that would have just about been the icing on the cake, but unfortunately it was marked right on the line. Now, we did have our chances to stretch the lead out even more, but unfortunately we did miss Matt DeBoer with a half chance there. And at the end of the game, Fremantle ran out 25-point winners in a very convincing match. I am very, very pleased with our performance at home. Very happy as well with Aaron Sandilands, who turned his form right around from the week before, racking up 11 disposals and winning the hitouts as well. Well, we'll take a look at the ladder now, and after our first win of the season at home, Fremantle are sitting comfortably at 7th position on the ladder. We are well above our West Coast rivals. They're down there at 16th. I'm absolutely ecstatic with the performance of Matthew Pavlich, Dockers captain. He's currently leading the way for the goal scoring in the AFL. He's kicked 7 goals in 2 games. He's 2 ahead of Monfries and Jared Roughhead, as well as Michael Hurley. Also very happy to see Jack Anthony's name up there as well, just a couple behind on 4. Well, now for my man of the match for today, and I had to go with the man who started as a sub last week and fought his way onto the first list. Jack Anthony, very well done. He played an exceptional game, kicking goals at crucial times for the Dockers. He racked up 3 goals in total, 2 behinds, and 9 disposals as well. And on top of all that, he also kicked today's goal of the round, which was this absolute beauty, soccer off the ground from an almost impossible angle at a very important time just before the three-quarter time break. Well, thanks very much for watching, guys. That brings an end to episode 2 of the Fremantle Dockers season mode for AFL Live. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment. Feedback is always read and always appreciated. And be sure to join us for the next match, the Western Derby, Fremantle versus the West Coast Eagles. It should be an absolute blockbuster, as it always is. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you again soon. Stay tuned.